You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show of the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers today, but we got Kyle. And that's all we need is Kyle. Kyle, what do you got going on?
Hey, what's up? It's Kyle from Madison. So, I know the Bills lost today, but I actually think, and maybe this will be what everybody's thinking too, I don't know, but it certainly seemed like to me, even in the loss, that Josh Allen might have just brought himself to the top of the MVP conversation, and it's not so, I mean, because he just shows you, like, look, this is what one guy on this team, like, he's got him in that game, even though the Rams are playing like a, 95 out of 100 kind of game. And Allen's got the Bills in it. And if it wasn't for their defense, just I don't know what's going on there. Really, more than anything, it looked like the Rams just making plays. I mean, I saw Douglas on coverage, and it was just a great throw to Cooper Kupp.
It's a great example, too, of sometimes teams just show up. As I've said numerous times now, when you get an idea of what a team generally is, that doesn't mean that's exactly what they are. So you look at it and go, wow, maybe the Bills aren't that good. It's like, or if you just watched it, you could see the Rams are playing way better than they have probably all season. And that just randomly happens sometimes.
Great throw beats great coverage, but I don't know. That's interesting to me. But I think Allen might actually kind of be the in vogue MVP guy after today's game, more so than Lamar. And I don't think Saquon really had a chance. Maybe he will. To me, it seems like Allen might be the guy people are talking about now, even though that he went down in a loss today. That was pretty crazy, man. That guy's a machine, and if he gets in the Super Bowl and it's not against the Packers, or just anyway, but as long as he's not playing the Packers, I'll root for him and the Bills maybe to win one, especially over the Chiefs. But and then you look at the Rams. Yeah, I mean that's why you don't really want to go on the road in the playoffs, but that's our lot in life, I guess. And can I just say that now because I think the Lions-Packers game and then this game against the Bills and the Rams were some of the games of the year. And both those games, the referees were just terrible, man. That game that just concluded not that long ago with the Bills. I mean, I don't know, the refereeing was just awful. It was just awful. So, yeah, two great games, two great showcases. The NFL, both with just absolutely referees just crapping the bed. So that's unfortunate. But other than that, that was a great game to watch. So at least we had something decent to watch today because, my God, if the Bears and the Vikings weren't those games. All right, we'll talk to you.
Yeah, well, as far as I mean, it's hard to find good games these days. Just from us, I mean, if you want to watch like good football, that's a different conversation. But in terms of like games that matter, like I said, it's tough to find because of the unique situation we're in. But tonight, San Francisco and L.A., rooting for L.A. in that game. Hopefully they can bring it again and just pound the 49ers. I mean, we're kind of getting to the point where it's like if they don't, I don't want them to get a good draft pick, but they have probably too many wins already. Whatever. I got to stop worrying about that. I hope San Francisco gets the crap beat out of them because it's funny. Dallas and Carolina, I mean, it's funny that that's even a competition. Kansas City's going to get another freaking win against Cleveland because obviously Houston, Miami don't care. Jacksonville Jets, I don't care other than to say, man, if the Jets cannot beat Jacksonville, that's crazy. New Orleans, Washington. I mean, the only thing interesting kind of about this is Washington about to lose their playoff spot? Because if they fall here, even though I don't believe their New Orleans' quarterback is going to be playing, I haven't looked into who their backup is yet, but if they fall here, they go to 8-6, and if the Rams win, they're at 8-6. I mean, it's getting a little iffy. Actually, probably should root for San Francisco because I don't need the Rams encroaching on us either. But whatever, I'm not doing it. Worry about that when it comes. Baltimore and the Giants, I don't care. Cincinnati, Tennessee, don't care. New England, Arizona, don't care. Colts, Denver, Buffalo, Detroit obviously is, I mean, please, Buffalo, just please. I cannot express to you how desperately I need you to beat Detroit. Tampa, Chargers, don't care. Philly, Pittsburgh, go Pittsburgh. Green Bay, Seattle, and then Chicago, Minnesota. I mean, that's a win-win. I'm obviously rooting for Chicago to beat Minnesota for, obvious reasons. But, I mean, if Minnesota beats the Bears, it's always funny. So, I don't know. I mean, there's some good games this week. There's a couple, depending on how interested you are in some of these things.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, on my point about the officiating tonight, in a little bit larger sense. And I know this isn't earth-shattering or anything, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is that the NFL is a problem. It has become, I think a lot of us, regardless of your politics or your life or your ability level or your disability or lack thereof or whatever, we go to football to escape. And because of a series of ridiculously convoluted rules that seem like they're black and white, but then are subjectively ruled upon during games and have immense, weight to the outcomes of these games, to see that rule set take apart a product which otherwise has some amazing highlights in it, but when people see this bureaucratic nightmare set of rules that is so follows this country as a whole, it's like the sport that was birthed from America ends up being destroyed by its own bureaucracy. Can you imagine? But it's like where we're headed. It's like the loyal.
It's a cultural thing here, I think. I don't know. We need rules on top of rules, and then we need rules to regulate our regulations and regulations to rule our rules. It's just, can we just stop?
Or the legal nightmares within civil suits in this country, everything's lawyered and everything's looked at, and it's just these flags, and it's really obscuring what is some amazing plays, play calling, matchups, and some incredible athletics out there. I don't know what they're going to do about it, but I just think that the youth of America and the other countries in the world, I don't think are going to find some of this enjoyable. And if we want the sport to remain after we're not here anymore, in 30 years, you think people are going to care about John Madden? Yeah, probably, but they'll never have listened to him call a game, They need to make this game attractive for the long term. You know what I mean? And it's a little bit heartbreaking when you see games just derailed by bad officiating or a lack of officiating when required. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, there's no question. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's social media or if the NFL really has just become this big of a problem or what it is. I just don't remember it being like this. I'm sure it's maybe a combination of both. We have too many rules now, but at the same time, also social media, now you get every little thing. Oh, look at this missed penalty. Look at that. Look at this problem. And stuff that you maybe wouldn't have even thought of. Plus, now that we're all wired to look for it 24/7, maybe we're seeing it more. I just don't remember this. Not that there weren't occasional, oh, that was a bad call or whatever, but it didn't seem like that was 50% of my experience, was watching flags get thrown and then critiquing the flags that were thrown. It should not be such a big part of the sport, but I don't know what you do about it, man. I don't. You start reeling these things in a little bit, I think. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what you do. Don't know the answer, but it is. I will say it is funny when you mentioned we need football for escape. Yet football is the most stressful part of my entire week, so I don't know how much of an escape it is.
A lot of guys are talking about the defense and how it's bad and this and that, right? But can we just get some context here? To me, that was probably the best defensive game I've seen. People might lose their mind by me saying that, but you got to think about it, right? The run defense, they ran the ball 40 times and they only have 115 yards or something. Our run defense showed life. We were off blocks at the line. We were having lots of tackle. honestly, it was poetry, right? But the big thing, the reason why the score is so high is there are specific play-to-plays, right? Every game, there's a handful of plays that are what changes the game, right? And all those plays just happen to be penalties or, a lucky catch on something that kept drives going, or a fourth down, go for it, right? So that's all it is. That's all, because how many touchdowns came off of going forward on fourth down, right? That's just Ed Campbell, all right? But you can't live that way. That's the problem. You can't live that way.
No, I think that is a good point. You take every single fourth down and turn it into either a punt or a field goal, Packers win the game. And so you can say, well, that's, credit to their coach. You're right, it is. But at the same time, like you're saying right now, if you continue doing that and, and you're not rewarded to the tune of like 4 out of 5 of them being successful, you're in big trouble, because the risk reward is really high in the risk category. So if you can maintain an 80% success rate, then that's the right decision.
So you look at total yardage and everything, it's like, dude, we did fine. Yeah, once they started throwing it, they started to have some success, but our secondary's depleted, and they had to shift everything around. I'm a big fan of Keyshawn on the outside. Going through all this, I love Keyshawn Nixon as an outside corner. Is he like a top tier corner? No, but he is a solid outside corner, right? He is a above replacement level corner until we get somebody that's better, right? Jair's injured constantly. We need to invest in corner. I think we all can agree upon that. We need to invest in the defensive line once again in the off season. But with how everything is, we know that the Eagles will go for it on fourth down. We know the Lions will go for it on fourth down, right? It takes a lot of luck to consistently do that. Yes, luck is on their side because they probably both have 80% success rates or better in short yardage on fourth down. So it's the odds are in their favor, but when we're talking playoffs and a Super Bowl run, we need to steal possessions. We need to be able to stop the run. The thing about this defensive performance today is we did that, and we got back into the game following those principles. Stop the run, steal possessions, and these teams are dumb enough to keep doing it, so I think we got a shot. Super Bowl run starts today. Go Pack Go.
And hopefully it's not even going to be us that needs to kind of put them in their place, because if they can just continue to do that and other teams can hurt them as a result, if Buffalo, if they try to do to Buffalo, granted, I can't imagine he usually goes for it 5 times. Maybe he does. I don't know. But if it starts to hurt a lot, you're going to have to pull back. There's really not a whole lot of other options. So, again, hopefully that gets taken care of by the time we get there. If we see him again, that is. Why don't we take our first break? We got a couple from AA, Ron, and rather than split them up, we'll take a break right now.
What's up, Ryan? AA Ron from Eau Claire. Thanks for making it through all 4 of my calls the other day.
Good.
Sorry about the length of that. I'll try to be extremely concise. I was just thinking about, now that the Packers are very, very unlikely to make the NFC North championship, especially because they're third and not second, and they're 4 games out from the Lions now. It's really just more about the playoffs. And in a way, I think that could be a good thing. Just because as fans, sometimes when when your team is like the top team in the regular season, then you're like, oh, now I have these expectations are going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. And then when they lose in the playoffs, you're just like pissed, And I'd almost rather be like, all right, well, my team is, in the mix. I don't expect them to win. And that way, if they do win, it feels great. So maybe that's hedging or whatever. But I think realistically, it can be a real letdown if it feels like, oh, this is the one year for my team,
We've all experienced that as Packers fans many times. Our team has been projected as the Super Bowl favorites for many times, and we haven't made it there since 2010, which is the year we weren't projected to make it. So I think about the playoffs, and when I watch the playoffs, it's always kind of like Willy Wonka when the kids are going through the chocolate factory, and it's like each one of them has these hopes and dreams or whatever of making it through, but they keep getting picked off one by one. That's how I feel in the playoffs, where it's like when you lose that game, it's over. You know, you're going home, you're sad. So I don't care if it's the Detroit Lions or the Chiefs or the Bills or whoever. You know, you go to those playoffs, the minute you lose one game by a field goal or get blown out or however it is, it's over. And it's such a crazy thing. But I think Packers fans, we're very experienced being the regular season champions. And I'm kind of just ready to just focus on the playoffs. So anyways, that'll be my one call, and I'll leave it at that.
That is hilarious because we have Aaron next. But no, I mean, you're right. It's a very weird thing to go through. Never really quite prepared for it, which is weird because we go through it a lot. But just sort of the feeling of, I mean, to go from holy crap, this really could happen. What if we really make it? What if we really win the Super Bowl this year to it's over? Like, just like that is done. It's pretty crushing.
Hey, Ryan. Aaron here. Just a quick observation that, remember back in the glory days of the 2010s when the Packers had Aaron Rodgers playing at a high level almost every year, and we mostly dominated the NFC North and all that stuff? Remember how we would win a bunch of games as blowouts, and then we would lose a couple games as absolute blowouts that were super embarrassing and just felt awful? Well, this year, we have not had a single embarrassing blowout. The closest we've gotten was Thanksgiving against the Lions. Or no, was that Thanksgiving? No. The one before Thanksgiving in the bad weather conditions where we lost by 10 points. That's the worst loss we've had this year.
Yeah.
I will take this kind of a team over the team that blows out a bunch of teams, gets all the stats, all that stuff, and then gets blown out by top teams. I just think this team is much more prepared to play hard for 4 quarters, to stay in games, to believe that they, aren't going to get their butts whooped up on for the entire game, to come back when things are adverse. I think this team is much more fun for me to watch than those Aaron Rodgers teams. Because with those teams, I always got a sense, okay, well, we're picking on the kids who aren't as tough, but we're going to get blown out eventually, and we're going to feel horrible, right? It just felt inevitable every year in the playoffs. The other team that has a little more toughness was gonna kick us out of the playoffs. So that's what I'm enjoying the most about these current Green Bay Packers, is that we just almost never get blown out. Even when we lose by 10, it's like that's our worst game this year, So I'm just enjoying not getting beaten up on and just hanging tough in games one way or the other.
That really is a great point. I hadn't really considered that before. And that does speak volumes, I mean, obviously people are always going to find stuff to complain about, but, you look at the losses now and it's like, well, we can't beat the good teams. It's like, okay, well, first of all, we beat all the teams that aren't the elite teams. right? Double-digit wins by friggin' just past midseason. We beat all the other teams, so that's hard to do. And not only have we really not lost very many games, but 0 blowouts. I mean, there's been no absolute complete failures. There's been issues with the team where it feels like a complete failure, like, man, nothing was really working. But to be able to stay in the fight regardless and win most of those games, like, I didn't feel good, but somehow we found a way to win. It's an important thing that they're doing. And you know, again, sometimes it's hard to notice some of the positives, you know? Kind of like you don't know what you don't know. It's hard to be grateful for not getting blown out when you don't even really think about the fact that you have never gotten blown out. It's much easier to get angry about getting blown out after it happens than it is to acknowledge it or notice it and then be really grateful for it.
Hey, Ryan, TJ from Alabama.
What's up?
Called 2 seconds ago, but got a bunch of static, so if you're try again. You know, talking about the Lions game, and I get it. I hear all the stuff. But, you know, in no way, shape, or form was it any kind of statement game that says, oh, the Packers are just not ready to compete. If anything, one, I don't think it's a statement game because I don't think there is such a thing as an in-season statement game. But if anything, if it was any kind of statement, that statement needs to be that Packers can compete with any team anywhere. We were at Detroit. We both had injuries on both sides that really affected us. Detroit had the injuries on the front seven, which did affect them. We had a bunch of injuries in the secondary that got worse during the game, which did affect us. But it was a 3-point game, down to the wire. The refs were clearly not anywhere in our favor, and we lost by 3. And that could have easily gone in either direction. So if it was a statement game, that statement is the Packers can compete with anybody and anywhere. And I'm cool with that. You know, this year compared to all the other years, I actually feel better about our chances. Ryan, you said it, you know, on one of the calls as far as, you know, most likely we're not going to win the Super Bowl because that is the answer for every single team every year.
Right.
But other than that, I see this team as being a little different. We have concerns. We have weaknesses and we have concerns. But I don't necessarily see the fatal flaws that we've had in the past. Special teams was a fatal flaw.
Yep.
We sucked at special teams, and that was just waiting to bite us in the ass, and it did. Our run defense for many years was a fatal flaw. We could not stop if there was a decent running team that was committed to the run, we could not stop them. And I don't see that being for anything this year. Do we have concerns? Yes. If Jair is not playing, we have a secondary that I don't feel great about. Our pass rush absolutely is a concern. But Hafley can scheme up some blitzes and things like that where I don't think it's a fatal flaw. So I think we can go anywhere and win anywhere. We just got to get in. And there's zero reason to believe that we won't get in. We could lose the next 4 games and not get in. That is entirely possible. But I don't see anything in the last 13 weeks that has said we should really lose the next 4 games. You know, we should win 2, 3, 4 of them, get to the playoffs, and then have at it from there. And are we going to win? I don't know, but I feel fairly good about it. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Those are 2 very good back-to-back calls there. Because those are very good points that I hadn't considered and are very true and very positive. Not only is it very rare to have a team that is in every single game and doesn't get blown out, but when was the last time you can sit back and go, I mean, there are issues pretty much across the board, some of them more nitpicky than others, but what is the one thing where you look at and just say, I don't know how we get over this hump. I don't know how we can necessarily compete because this is such an unbelievable disaster. I don't think that exists. I mean, if we want to get super niche with it, we could talk about linebackers covering the middle of the field as a pretty small category. But, you know, even without Jair, the coverage has been good, which is weird. I mean, it's better with him for sure, and that probably affects everything else, the kinds of coverage calls that you make, and that may help the middle of the field and all that kind of stuff. But Run defense, I mean, you got to maintain these things. Run defense could fall off at any minute, but as of right now, I like the quarterback. I like our receivers. I like our passing game. I like our running game, just as broad categories. I like our run defense and our pass defense. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I love it. On the other hand, I'm annoyed by it. I think overall I like it, and I think it's easier for me to say I like it thanks to Ron's call on the last one, where he pointed out a lot of that was fourth down stuff. A lot of that is, we did get the stop, and then they convert a fourth down. And, I think there were a couple of those were fourth down passes in the middle of the field. Otherwise, they would have been stops, and we wouldn't have been as annoyed by it. So, and yeah, special teams, great. I mean, Keyshawn is well above average as a returner. I have no issue saying we have an above average kicker and an above average punter. At the very least, I don't feel having a liability anywhere. Maybe long snapper, but that hasn't really reared its ugly head. Maybe the guys we have at holder and kicker are talented enough to overcome it, or maybe some of those issues were the kicker all along, that we were just kind of blaming on the long snapper. I don't know, but yeah, even blocking kicks. We don't block kicks. When do we do that? Penalties seem to be improving to some degree, not as nearly as much of a liability as it was. No, I think that's a good point.
Ryan, how are you? Buddy Kyle from Madison.
Good.
Well, I did it. I went and watched the game again one last time. It's hard in a loss. I don't know how you guys I don't even know if you do this, but I know some of the Packers personalities on podcasts and whatnot are doing grades and breaking down film. Man, it's hard when if they win, great, and they lose, it's too, I don't know, it's painful, but I did it. And, man, I hate the Lions. I haven't caught all your pods yet. I got to get caught up, but, the fans, they're acting like they won this thing by 20 points. It's pretty gross. Two big takeaways, though, from the game. I've got to give the Lions credit. It seems like there's something that happens in the NFL where coaches, for some reason, have some hidden principle where they can't do something so many times in a row. I don't know why. And the Lions are like, oh yeah, hold my beer. On defense, blitzing. Man, they didn't care at all. They did not care at all about depleted secondary. They were bringing it. It was like the Kansas City game when Love got his first start nearly. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that was like a 70% blitz rate in that game. I don't know what this was, but it was nuts. And it just didn't matter. They just kept bringing it, and I don't know. I can understand the Packers being unprepared for the variety of blitzes and the sheer number of times they blitz. I don't think they were prepared for the complete breakdown of the interior pressure or of the interior offensive line. Now, you did touch on that. I heard that about somebody's observation about, was it Bankert? I did hear that part of your pod. So that makes a little bit of sense. Still inexcusable how you don't figure that out.
Right.
But thank you, Lions, for solving that for us now.
Exactly.
Because going into Seattle, that's going to be an issue, so you better get it fixed. On the offensive side of the ball, the Lions, man, okay, we'll just keep running. We'll just keep spamming screens all day. You guys are going to clog the middle of the field with your linebackers. We'll just keep screening to the perimeter. And they just kept going with it. And it was it wasn't kill shot brutal, but it was that paper cut offense that people like to run against us, That, and then the other thing I took away from that is Jordan Love has just such a hell of a lot of potential. But he's a young quarterback. And you can just see that he's still figuring out things. He hasn't seen everything yet. So kind of a tough rewatch. But all in all, some good lessons to be learned. So let's move forward to Seattle, who really does look like quite a formidable team. It's going to be a tough game this weekend. So we'll talk to you.
Yeah, several good points. One of them I kind of touched on, I think it was yesterday, but the idea that, the Lions, they got arrogant and threw everything they had at us. And they did have some stuff on us. They learned some things about us. They exploited some weaknesses. That is fantastic because we now know all of them. Now, you still have to find a way to overcome that, which can be difficult, no question about it, especially since, you overcompensate too hard. Now you got a new vulnerability and whatnot, but that is a very good thing. The other is, I guess I wished that everything that you ended the season with would just pick up immediately. The fact that we got off to such a slow start in so many different areas is annoying because you feel like you're never growing, right? If you start at 0 every year and then grow by the end of the year, I mean, it's cool because you're a pretty good team by the end of the year, but you keep going back to 0. Why don't you stay where you are, roughly? Some things are going to regress. You're going to lose some players or whatever the case may be, and you can grow in those areas, but it shouldn't be everywhere. One of the things I decided not to save the video because I just disagreed with it so much on the initial premise. But the guy was talking about, the Packers are a year away, and you can tell because Jordan's still very young and he's still figuring it out, kind of similar to what you said. And it's like, I don't know that that's exactly how I would phrase it because he figured it out last year, and then it's like he forgot it all, and then he figured it. Now he's figuring it out again. So, I mean, is it a matter of he's learning, or is it a matter of this guy just takes a half a year every year to figure this out? I don't know. But the great thing is they very much are learning. So regardless of the frustration, we've seen a lot of growth in a lot of areas. Dontavian Wicks, the drops have seemingly improved, knock on wood, and everything else that you have. Penalties are getting better. Jordan is getting better, especially when it comes to the blitzing, like I pointed out yesterday or this morning or whatever. He is significantly improved with blitzing and under pressure. This run defense has not been like this all year. That is a growth and adaptation, just like a lot of other things have been. I think early in the year, the defense seemed better and maybe wasn't as good as it seemed. Now I think the defense is better, but doesn't seem as good as it is. And that largely just comes down to interceptions. We got a bunch of interceptions, and as I told everybody, those things are fleeting and they're fluky, and a lot of it comes down to luck. You're not just an elite interception defense. It's not really a thing. So the question is, when that goes away, what are you? And I think if we didn't have the interceptions early in the season, it would be much easier to see the growth that the defense has had. Now it feels almost like regression because we had a bunch of takeaways and now we're not having them. And we just have boring things like, run defense and trying to get off the field on third down, which struggled against the Lions. Actually, we didn't struggle against the Lions. We just struggled because after we stopped them on third down, they went forward on fourth and then got it. To be fair, something very basic and obvious for everybody, it's harder to stop a team going for it 4 times as opposed to 3 times. That's true across the board. So again, leaving aside the annoyance that we started as slow as we did, it is great to see that this team is really starting to figure it out. And let's just see how far they can take that. We're running out of runway here to get fully where we need to be able to start winning. All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back, and we got some Ben from Wisconsin coming up.
Hey, Ryan. This is Ben from Stockville.
What's up?
It's been a while since I called into the show. To be honest, it's been a while since I listened. Just kind of got back into it last week. The Lions game is well behind us now. After football and collect my thoughts, and to be honest, it is what it is with the refs, and I think we played a damn good team. We're going to be a pretty good team going forward. Yesterday, today is Monday, yesterday Seattle looked pretty darn good against the Cardinals, so thinking maybe we might get a run for our money there. I just want to sit back and think about this. The year is 2015, and your upcoming opponent, the thought in your head is Geno Smith going to shred our defensive backfield?
There's more to that call, but the phone kind of just went dead there, so let's see if we can get better luck with the second call here.
That was pretty frickin' rude of my phone to cut me off in the middle of my question. Anywho, do you think Thursday against the Lions the refs were worse, or the NFC Championship game against Brady and the Buccaneers, where at the end of the game Kevin King got called for a hold? even though literally no holding calls have been called against the Buccaneers the entire game.
Well, and that was the one that on the exact same play, Rashawn Gary was getting a chokehold from behind right in front of a referee, which did not get called. So at absolute worst, and you're right, there were no calls basically that entire game. Everybody was allowed to play. They were roughing up our guys all game long. At worst, it should have been offsetting penalties. Instead, we get called for hold. They get away with holding Rashawn Gary by his throat. So yeah, that was pretty annoying.
Just wanted to know your thoughts on that, and also,
as far as which one, I don't know. I mean, it's which one hurt more. Obviously, the getting expelled from the playoffs hurt more. This one felt maybe just because it was like all game, and there were a lot of really obvious ones, and it was just there's so many of them. Maybe there were more in that game that I'm not remembering, but I think that one hurt more. This one was a little more egregious.
I feel like if you took this Packers team and, take all the variables out of it, because I know obviously it's different dependent on, what's going on injury-wise and momentum and that type of stuff. But I feel like if you just took this Packers team and airdropped it into that championship game, I feel like this Packers team would have beat that Buccaneers team, in my opinion. I don't know. I just feel like there's something about this team in the post-Rodgers era that really it's got a different feel to it to me. When Rodgers was the quarterback, I used to have games where, you could tell it just wasn't going to be the offense's game, and, they just felt the hope drain out of you as we continuously didn't score.
No.
And I don't know, I feel like the J-Love era kind of has some swagger to it. So, I don't know, just an interesting thought experiment. I'm just kind of rambling, so appreciate you taking this call. Look forward to hearing myself on the show once again, and go Pack, go.
Yeah, I don't want to. You need to tread carefully on saying things like, Jordan is more clutch because Rodgers had some incredible comebacks or whatever. But in terms of just never being out of a game, definitely feel that a lot more with this crew. I've said it 1,000 times now, but with the Packers in the past, you could just tell by about the first quarter, either we're going to beat this team or we're really not. Because everything ran through Rodgers. Everything ran through not just the offense, but the passing offense. And the passing offense was almost entirely run by Rodgers. The plays were Rodgers and everything else. And if he couldn't defeat a defense, you could just kind of tell. And then you could see him start to get frustrated and annoyed and blame everybody else. And then the wind got taken out of everybody else's sails. And I think the rest of the team could also feel it. The defense started to fall apart. And you just knew. This team, almost always by the end of the first half, you're thinking, geez, this is terrible. And then the Packers come roaring back. So Jordan doesn't give a crap. He is emotionless when it comes to this. And Rodgers was very emotional. So very, very different, and I think beneficial to have the ability to, I hate to say the ability to play four quarters because obviously not starting in the beginning is the problem, but just never being out of the game is solid. And yes, Rodgers did have a lot of incredible comebacks. Those did happen, but this just feels different. It feels like there's no such thing as momentum with Jordan, right? It's just like, oh, here, it's over, it's done, it's whatever. And Jordan's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just playing here. I don't. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I didn't notice. Sorry.
Hey, I just wanted to make sure, the Bears are struggling. They're floundering. They might fire polls, right? So just don't look at John Eric Sullivan, please. Like we like him as one of our front office guys. We don't do something right, please.
I know.
Because I actually enjoy the chaos. Can't we just keep polls? I know we I've been enjoying it. Don't take my fun away. The whole poll thing. It's the best, dude. And just a reminder, okay, they had only 4 picks, but originally they only had 3 picks, and they traded away next year's 4th round pick for a 5th round pick this year. Like, they're just trading the future away because this is like, yeah, we're good. We don't even care. Like, we don't care about picks. Let's go. But, like, I just hope they don't do something competitive. Because, like, the first step to, like, competence is, like, firing polls. And if that happens, I'm like, oh, crap. Like, hey, it can't get much worse, right? They could pick actually.
The problem with all this is the only thing they ever get right is firing their bad hirings. And I've been saying for what feels like a decade that they couldn't get worse, and they find ways to get worse. They had Trubisky. It was just the beginning of just this horrific era for the Bears, and you thought it couldn't get worse. And then when Fields came around, somehow they got worse, and you thought, okay, they got rid of Fields. They brought in this new guy. He's super scary. Defense was good last year. No way they get worse. I still, to this day, don't know how somehow they were worse, because in every which way, they seemed like a better team. But the dysfunction inside the building was too much to overcome. So I don't know if I would want to dare the Bears to see if they could get any worse. And honestly, it's not even that hard to figure out how, because they had a really good defense. If that falls off and the offense stays the same, they are a much worse football team. Just right there.
Somebody confident. So they could just by cycling through, they could luck into somebody. They actually did luck into somebody. They lucked into Matt Nagy, who wasn't a bad coach, and they fired him. So maybe I don't have to worry. Maybe. I don't know. Go Paco.
You know, I had not made the point yet. I was going to save it, but since you're kind of bringing me to it anyways, I borderline want to just let the Bears have everything. They got Caleb, right? Generational quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, you know what? You get Ben Johnson. You can have Saleh as your defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, whatever. I don't know. Somebody really, really good. You get all that stuff. You're not getting our guy for GM, but you get a good GM, whatever. But that's it. If you do not show that you can be a really good football team in like 2 years, I'm going to give you this year as a mulligan. By next year, you are in the playoffs as a serious contender. If you can't do that, your franchise is disbanded. Okay? That's the trade-off. You get all that stuff. But if you can't make that work, I'm sorry, we're not here anymore. Fortunately, we're not going to do that, and hopefully that never happens, because I'm like you. I don't want them to go away. I enjoy them too much. I don't know what I would do with myself.
Hey, Ryan, Dennis from California. I'm just thinking about fan bases, because obviously I'm in California. I'm surrounded by 49er fans. And, you know, I know a few Bears fans. My cousins are Vikings fans. I know one Lions fan who's actually a great fan, but everything I see online, every Lions fan is just trash.
Yeah.
They're acting like they didn't have a bag over their head.
Right.
And all of a sudden the bag's off and they're just crazy. But I don't know, man. If I had to rate, like, because like I actually love Vikings fans because they don't believe in their team, and they just know when they start to believe, that's when things go downhill. So like I have so much respect for Vikings fans because they're very humble and they get it. They're like, don't get my hopes up. Even when they buy in, they know in the back of their heads, like, don't worry. Like, I know it's not for real. Right? That's exactly how my cousins are. They believe so much that it's not real. That's my favorite. Lions fans, I don't know what the hell's up with these guys. These guys are crazy, dude. I just don't get it. Like, you would like think they'd be so happy to be here. Like, you know what? Like, this is like, because I'm not in the NFC North area. I haven't been surrounded, but like, I always liked the Lions because it's just like, oh, these guys, like one day they'll be good, and you know, I can be proud of these guys. It's like kind of, you know, like they were so a non-division rival my whole life that they're kind of like my secondary favorite team. That's how bad they've been. And now that they're like, I've seen like like their culture. Like, oh, I hate these guys suck. I hate the Lions. And now you got the Bears. The Bears probably the most loyal fans ever. They just have unshakable beliefs, and I'll leave it at that. And then what I know best is like the 49er fan, because in the same mouth they will say we need to fire our coach, but then they'll turn and they will just like, we're gonna crush you. It's the same thing. They just have unshakable, irrational like takes. In the same breath, they'll like fire Kyle Shanahan. This team sucks, but we're gonna crush you. Like, I remember when I went to the NFC divisional game a couple years ago, or last year. I'm walking down wearing a Woodson jersey. He's like, Woodson, you're gonna get crushed, right? And it's like these guys, like in this stuff. That's what these fans were screaming at me as I'm going to the stadium. But the entire time, the guy behind me, or 4 or 5 guys behind me, they were like, nice play calling, Kyle. Right? They just hate Kyle Shanahan so much to their core. And he's the reason for their success. It makes no sense.
Yeah, we've all learned a lot about Lions fans. And I think the best way to sum it up is they don't know how to act. That's about it. I mean, they're coming out just acting like complete jagoffs, like they've earned anything ever. And they desperately need to be taken down a few pegs. That just needs to happen. Other teams, pretty obnoxious, but they've earned the right. 49ers, they've earned the right to talk a little bit. Lions have not earned anything. I think it reminds me a little bit of like Bears fans right now talking about how Caleb's having a great year because he's on pace for 3,500 yards. And it's like, do you understand how garbage that is? I don't think you get it. And it's hard to explain to them because Justin Fields was throwing for like 2,500 yards in a season, which is just unbelievable how bad that is. It's like Rodgers, excluding like a couple injured years, never did that. And it's like, well, he's Rodgers. But yeah, but do you understand how long his career was to never have a season that bad? And you're saying that that's pretty good. But they just, from a contextual standpoint, they don't understand. So trying to say that 3,500 isn't good to a Bears fan, it's kind of a waste of time. Similarly, trying to explain to the Lions that they haven't done anything, I don't know that that's going to compute. I don't think it's going to. I mean, they're arguably the number 1 team in football. That's a big deal. Probably going to get the first seed in the playoffs. It's a big deal. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how else to get it through their heads that they should not be acting this way, but here we are. All right, folks, I'm going to leave it at that. We're starting to get caught up on the calls here, so I feel like we're on a good pace. But I'll leave you guys with that, and I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.